What's up, everybody? Welcome to ZTV Presents Movie Reviews. I am Paiper, Zombee, your host as always, and on today's episode, I'll be reviewing Spike Lee's 2000 film Bamboozled. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Bamboozled opens with an introduction by the movie's protagonist, Pierre Delacroix, played by Damon Wayans. As he goes about getting ready for his day at the office, he reveals a bit about himself. He's a television writer for a network known as the Continental Network System, or CNS, and they're in a bit of a jam. Seems that nobody is watching their shows. This point is reiterated on in the morning meeting at work by the head of the department, Thomas Dunwitty, played by Michael Rappaport. He challenges the writers to come up with something that's going to bring CNS up from its slump and put it back on top. Secretly, though, he doesn't think that any of his writers can do it except for Dela. That's Pierre's nickname, and most everybody in the movie refers to him by that instead of his first name. Ironically, Dela is Dunwitty's only colored writer on a panel that does urban shows. And in a later separate meeting between the two of them, Dunwitty challenges Dela to come up with something that will blow everything else out of the water. Dela consults with his right-hand woman and personal assistant, Sloane Hopkins, played by Jada Pinkett-Smith. He tells her how the network and Dunwitty don't want him to write the next Cosby Show. They don't believe that's where the audience is. They want him to write the next Homeboys in Outer Space. That's where they believe the audience is. When Sloane asks him what he intends to do, Dela tells her that he's going to give the network and Dunwitty exactly what they want. He's going to present something so negative, so offensive, and so racist that if they dare pick it up, his point will be proven on the spot. When Sloane asks Dela what exactly his point is supposed to be, he tells her that he wants to prove that Dunwitty and the network only want to see black people on television if they're being buffoons. From there, Dela and Sloane enlist the help of two street performers who usually perform out in front of their building. We've got Juilliard arts-educated tap dancer Man Ray, played by Savion Glover, and his homeboy, co-shower, and manager, Womack, played by Tommy Davidson. Sloane, Man Ray, and Womack don't find out what exactly Dela's true plan is until they have their meeting with Dunwitty to pitch the actual show. That's when Man Ray and Womack find out that they're going to be starring in the revival of something known as a minstrel show. Now, for those who don't know, minstrel shows were variety-style shows that came about in the 1840s and lasted well into the 1900s. They were done at a time when black people weren't allowed to be shown on television, in movies, or in live theater. So in order to portray black people in these medias, white people used a technique known as blackface. This is where they would take this dark-colored mixture and apply it to their faces in an attempt to make themselves look like black people. Once these actors were blackface, they would speak and carry themselves using every negative black stereotype in the book. Now, believe it or not, Dunwitty and Man Ray are completely down with Dela's concept. But Womack is like,
Whoa. What?
And Sloane is looking at Dela like,
have you lost your mind?
But despite all this, the team agrees to push forward and bring the idea to life. Later that afternoon, Sloane is on her way home when she receives a visit from her big brother Julius, played by Mos Def. We find out he's the leader of a music group called the Mau Mau's. They specialize in rap with a social-political edge, and he's looking to get the hookup for him and his group with Dela. Sloane tells Julius that the Mau Mau's are an embarrassment, don't have any real chance of securing a record deal, and that there's no way in the world that she would ever present them to Dela or to CNS. The two agree to disagree, but when Julius leaves, the two are still on good terms. Meanwhile, work on the show progresses. Dela believes that he's going to be the one who's writing the pilot, but he finds out that there's going to be other hands involved, and all of them are white. These hands start changing things that Dela doesn't want to be changed, and when he brings this up to Dunwitty just downplays it and reminds Dela that he knows the black audience better than Dela does. Oh yeah, I did forget to mention that Dunwitty is married to a black woman, has 2 children with her, and has immersed himself into black culture. He believes that this makes him more of a Negro than Dela, who's trying to be white with his fake French name and his accent. When the pilot episode for the show is shot before a live studio audience, even they're in shock as to what they're seeing. It's so bad that unless the little icons were up at the top telling them what to do, they wouldn't even know what to do. After the taping, De La thinks there's no way in the world the show is going to get picked up. But much to his surprise, he gets a call from Dunwitty telling him that the network loved the show. They loved it so much that they actually want the show to be a mid-season replacement. Later that night, as De La is getting over the shock of the call, he receives a call from his mother requesting him to go out and see his father. This is where we learn that De La's real first name is Peerless, and we also find out where he got his taste for show business from. His father is a comedian who goes by the name Junebug, and he performs in local nightclubs. De La goes to see him perform and visits with him after the show. As father and son speak, we find out they're on opposite sides of the fence. Junebug is indie. He couldn't conform to Hollywood and the things that they wanted him to do and say. But as an indie, he's happy. He can do what he wants, say what he wants, go where he wants to go, do what he wants to do, and his audience loves him for it. But De La, he thinks his father could have been bigger, better, greater if he just would have conformed. Then his life wouldn't have just been road shows and hotel rooms. It wouldn't have just been a few holes in the wall that would have known he was funny. The entire world would have known. After his visit is done, De La decides that he doesn't want to go out the same way his father is. He's going to make sure the world knows who he is. Finally, the time comes for Mantan, the new Millennium Minstrel show, to make its network television premiere. Sloan Womack and Man Ray all watch the show together, while De La watches by himself in his office. It isn't until the next day at work that De La and Sloan find out that the episode's ratings were through the roof. CNS finally has a hit on its hands. As a present for his win, Sloan gives De La an old-school piggy bank. When De La asks why she would give him a gift like that, she tells him that it's twofold. It's appropriate for a man with a brand new successful show because he'll be going to the bank. But it's also a reminder of a time in history when black people were considered inferior and subhuman to white people, and that he should never forget that time or that struggle. We jump ahead in time from here and we see that the show becomes a smashing success. It's the next big thing in popular culture. When people go to the live tapings, they show up in blackface no matter what race they are. Everybody is in it, except of course for a small group of black people and the black organizations. All of them come together to picket the show outside of the CNS building. Even De La himself comes under fire from certain members of the black community for creating such a show, but he defends his work, saying that it's art. He believes that black people need to move on from the old days, leave the slave mentality behind, and embrace and adapt to the new. If we don't, we're going to be left behind as a race. Even critics embrace the show, calling it groundbreaking and barrier breaking. It gets nominated for multiple television awards, including the much coveted Academy Award. And it wins them all. De La finally gets the taste of victory he's been so hungry for all this time, and he eats it all up. Man Ray and Womack are definitely enjoying their taste of the good life, but only Man Ray seems to be enjoying it full-heartedly. That becomes apparent one day when Womack visits Man Ray during one of his rehearsals with his dancers. Womack witnesses Man Ray chastise his dancers for messing up the smallest things before he eventually gets so fed up he dismisses them all on a 10-minute break. Womack confronts Man Ray over his behavior. During the confrontation, Womack reveals his own feelings toward the show. He's disliked the idea from the very beginning, and despite its huge success in the life it's allowing him to live, he's decided not to participate in it any longer, and he wants to walk away. Man Ray thinks Womack is out of his mind to walk away from what they have. But if that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do, because Man Ray decides he's not going back to life out on the streets. Womack sticks by his decision though, and he leaves the show. After the confrontation, Sloan and Man Ray, who actually have a little relationship going on, discuss the confrontation. Sloan thinks that Man Ray should be the bigger man and call Womack, but Man Ray thinks that Womack was in the wrong and will not call him. Later on that night, Sloan meets up with De La at his apartment at De La's request. It appears that De La has gotten some information about Sloan and Man Ray from Sloan's brother Julius. De La questions Sloan about her relationship with Man Ray, of which Sloan doesn't think is any of De La's business. That's when he tells her that himself and Dunwitty thinks that her relationship with Man Ray is affecting Man Ray's work. See, secretly, Sloan has been talking to Man Ray and educating him on what blackface and minstrel shows are, and what it really means for him to be doing that in their day and age. De La eventually demands that Sloan not see Man Ray anymore, and that leads into the two getting into an argument into which De La makes the remark that he should have never gotten romantically involved with the help. The help being Sloan. And Sloan is like,
Nigga, did you just call me your help? Is that what you think of me?
and she sets it straight off, pretty much telling De La if he wasn't so busy trying to get away from his own culture and trying to slide himself into another one, then he might have some more stroke in his back.
Now help that shit out.
De La kicks her out, but before she goes, she leaves De La with the VHS tape and tells him to watch it, because it just might be able to save him from the road he's going down. But De La isn't gonna let her have the last word. Oh no. He fires Sloan. Man Ray is not happy about that once he finds out. He doesn't understand how De La could have let somebody who was on their team go. That's when De La drops the bomb and asks Man Ray how he thinks Sloan got her job in the first place. De La tries to paint Sloan as an opportunist who only wants Man Ray because he's successful and is coming up in the world. Man Ray doesn't believe it, but De La tells him, if you don't believe me, why don't you go ask Sloan yourself? So that's what Man Ray does. Sloan does reveal that she slept with De La, but that it has nothing to do with the hard work she put in to actually earn the job she recently lost. Man Ray is so hurt and disappointed by the revelation that he believes everything De La said about Sloan, and he tells her he's glad she got fired. Sloan retaliates by saying that she's tired of men thinking that attractive women only have their positions because they've slept with somebody to get it. Now this is what makes me mad about this character, because what they could have did was made it to where she never slept with De La. Like, they could have taken that out, because it definitely would have helped her argument at this point. But instead, we as the audience have to believe that she really did get her position on her own merits and not due to any influence from De La. Ultimately, it leads to Sloan asking if Man Ray is a puppet for De La, but Man Ray thinks he's looking at De La's puppet right in front of him. Sloan then asks if he's not a puppet for De La, then who is he a puppet for? Later that night before the taping of the show, De La gets a call from his mother, who has finally gotten to see the show for herself. While she's definitely happy for her son's success, she does keep it real with him.
But a coon is a coon.
Needless to say, De La isn't feeling too good about himself after that, and is sitting at his desk where he starts feeding the coins into the bank that Sloan gave him. Suddenly, the bank decides to have a poltergeist moment. The bank goes quiet after that, and De La is left to wonder if he really saw what he just saw, or if his mind is just playing tricks on him. Backstage, just before the show is about to go live, Man Ray finally reaches his breaking point as he hears the audience speaking. Regardless of race, all of them are identifying as Negroes, and they even compete with each other to prove who's more Negro. Instead of just walking away, Man Ray goes out on stage in his regular civilian clothes and without his blackface. The reaction from the audience is complete shock, pretty much just like the first episode. In a speech that's a twist of the one he gave during the first taping, Man Ray urges everyone to run to their windows and yell out that they're sick and tired of being Negroes and that they're not gonna take it anymore. He then launches into a high-paced solo tap routine, which causes Dunwitty and security to run onto the stage and remove him. After that, Dunwitty tells Man Ray that he's done and kicks him out of the building and his job. What Man Ray doesn't know is that the Mau Mau's have been plotting his demise for quite some time. They see what he and everyone else involved in the show is doing to the culture, and they do not agree. How they happen to be there at the perfect moment to catch Man Ray alone is anyone's guess, but that's exactly what happens. They kidnap him and hold him hostage with the intention of broadcasting what they call the Dance of Death over the internet. This Dance of Death will essentially be an execution live on air. The Mau Mau's are even bold enough to send messages to television networks telling them how they can tune in over the internet. Dunwitty puts out a plea over the networks for any information that could lead to the safe return of Man Ray and the apprehension of those responsible. But the Mau Mau's make sure nobody knows where Man Ray is or how to find him until show night. And on that night, they force Man Ray to dance like he's never danced before by shooting at his feet with their guns. Ultimately, they shoot him dead live on the air. De La, Sloan, and Womack are all devastated by the death. De La cracks up in his office. His piggy bank starts having another poltergeist moment, and it winds up leading to him destroying all the blackface circa dolls he has in his office. Meanwhile, as the Mau Mau's are leaving the scene of the murder, the police pull the same tactic on them that they pulled on Man Ray. They gun down each of the members of the Mau Mau's, save for one, the one singular white guy who's part of the group. The funny thing is that this fool keeps yelling at the cops that he's black and for them to shoot him too. It's Sloane who closes out the situation for us when she goes to De La's office armed with pain, anger, and a gun. She sees that De La has the VHS tape that she gave to him on his desk. She commands him to watch it. De La does as he's told. The tape winds up being an old episode of a blackface show. Sloane calls him out for contributing to that and puts him on the spot for the deaths of Man Ray and her brother. When Sloane asks De La what he has to say for himself, De La can't say anything. When he tries to go to her in an attempt to offer some form of consolation and stop her from making a horrible mistake, she begs for him not to come toward her and winds up shooting him twice when he tries to take the gun from her. As she flees the office to a fate unknown, De La picks up the gun and cleans off the prints with his shirt. He knows that he's dying, and he knows that he bought it all on himself. But there's nothing he can do to take it back now, just like he knows there's nothing he can do to save his own life. And it's on this horribly somber note that the movie closes its curtains. So that, ladies and gents, is Bamboozled. And I've got to say that I personally enjoyed the movie. It is a satire and it does have some over-the-top moments, especially when it comes to the in-movie commercials and the Mau Mau's. But when it comes to the Mau Mau's, I feel like their characters should have been done seriously, because at the time when the movie was made, and probably even still now, it was an issue trying to get a record deal as a rap group that tried to do anything that wasn't about money, girls, TVs, drugs, and cars. The in-movie commercials are both ridiculous and funny. They've got one for a malt liquor called The Bomb. And just look at that bottle. You already know what kind of commercial this is going to be. The other commercial is for a clothing line that's a spin on Tommy Hilfiger, with the last part of Hilfiger being replaced with another word. Now that's a name that doesn't mean anything now, but back when this movie was released, it was a very popular line of clothing. My only complaints about the film, I guess, would be that I just wish they would have given us a little bit more backstory when it came to Womack and Man Ray's characters. Like, we don't get anything about them. All we know is that they're broke, they're on the streets, and that they're street performers, and that's about as deep as we go. I have no idea why they couldn't take 10 or 15 minutes out just to, give us a little something, but they didn't. Other than that, I felt like the actors and the actresses all did good jobs and were believable in their parts, even the Mau Mau's. Now, I'm not sure about the entirety of Spike Lee's film catalog, but I know that this film got a limited release. So it wasn't even widespread and available. That only happened once it went to DVD. So I don't know if the studio wanted this movie to flop or just because of the subject matter didn't think it would do well. But I don't know. I can remember when I went to go see this movie in the theaters that the theater wasn't even halfway full. And it was at a time where people would have been out seeing movies. So I don't know when it came to this one. But it is a good little watch if you're in the mood for something that's satirical and has a message but won't beat you over the head with it. So that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you for joining me. And if you liked the review, please feel free to hit that thumbs up button. And if you didn't like the review, please feel free to hit that thumbs down button. But if you're going to hit that thumbs down button, please at least tell me why. Because if I don't know what you saw was wrong, how can I fix it? I'm Paiper Zombie, and I'll see you next time.